So welcome back to the Kinkaid Garden Back to Eden Garden. I haven't done an update for a little while. In fact, what happened was I did an update a couple of weeks ago, got it ready, prepared to upload, and found that half of the video was missing and I couldn't retrieve it. So this is an update to replace that one. So let me take you down the garden. We'll have a look and see how things are going. We've had a strange couple of weeks weather-wise here in North Devon, so everything is looking very lush and green, as you can see behind me. So last week we had temperatures of up to 30 degrees centigrade, which is quite warm for us, in fact unbearable in the office, and the garden probably found that a little warm, but that has been followed by storms and heavy rain. There were hailstones in some parts of the county, although I think we were fairly fortunate here to avoid that. But let's have a look at the garden and see how it's doing. So we'll start here at the bottom of the garden in the orchard. As you can see, things are still growing, which is a good thing. Some of our squash pumpkin there are growing nicely. It looks like we may have some flower heads coming, which are quite exciting. So as you can probably also tell, it's fairly windy. Had a lot of apples fall from the tree above, which always worries me a little bit, as you know, you don't want it to land on the squash. Let's have a look. So things are a little bit windy, as you can see. Life is good, so we're still growing. We've had to protect some of the more vulnerable plants, so we found some little whatever we can find basically in the garden to give them protection. So, but it's looking good. Certainly these have taken a long time to come up, you know, and they look very pale still, maybe a little weak, which is why we've, as you can see, given them little fences and protection. Again, we've tried to do it as naturally as possible, so you'll see stones and logs, things that we had lying around in the garden. So let me pull back and you'll be able to see the fruit trees. So this is our pear tree. Zoom in and you can see these are our pears, the fruit that is growing. Obviously they're loving the fact that it's now raining. Everything is happier with the fresh rain. This is my plum tree. Again, let me move in and you can see the fruit is growing there nicely. We'll have some good sized plums off that this year. And then pan round. This is the Granny Smith's apple tree, which I've talked about in the past. And again, look at the fruit on there. It's very windy here. So this branch at the bottom here, which I'm just showing you, is this is all new growth this year. I certainly wouldn't have let that branch grow the way it has, but you know, the tree is definitely liking the fact that we've put this mulch all around the base, and when that blows away, as it inevitably is at the moment with the winds, we're just replacing that and keeping that mulch solid on there so that they all have that depth to enjoy, and obviously the plum is a lot stronger from the point of view anyway. I'm going to pan around now and show you the turn. Yes. So this is our corn. So these ones here, these were the ones that we planted the first time round. Still looking very small, weak even, very yellow in colour, and you can see we've done something to try to help with the nitrogen. So one of the things I asked on a forum a week or so ago was, why is it that the beans and the corn are all looking so kind of pale rather than that deep lush green that we would expect? Everything is pale, and one of the answers I got back was that with the chips, with it being the first year that the chips have been put down, the soil is drawing the chips are drawing the nitrogen from the soil, so the goodness is being drawn up from the soil into the chips to help it break down. And so what we've done here, and I'll show you the beans in a moment, we've done the same there, is pulled away the chips from the base, and we've put some fresh compost down to try to help these plants with food. We've also made some compost tea, which once it dries out and they need watering again, we'll be watering on the garden as well, to try to help with that deficiency. It's not easy when it rains because obviously we don't want to overwater, so we have to be careful. But moving along, I mean, these plants here, these ones, let me move around here, it's a little bit easier for you to see. These have been planted since. We kept them in the house for longer and grew them up in plant pots for longer, and these are much stronger plants and they altogether look healthier. So, I mean, one of the things we've kind of said is that while these other ones are slow to grow, they do look very healthy. Looking at the stems, they're nice and thick and strong, and obviously some of them we've staked because the wind has been so strong, but those, they, you know, really they probably would manage without the stakes. We just want to be certain we don't lose anything. So moving along, this is our beetroot patch, and as you can see, these are looking very good. The bottom leaves have started to lose some colour and even fall away, but there's lots of fresh growth, and the beets are looking nice and healthy. We're looking forward to that. It's funny how some plants haven't needed that extra nitrogen and others do, but I understand that beets actually are nitrogen givers, so that could be one of the reasons why they're thriving so well in this patch. So over here to my left we have the potato patch. Again, you can see the wind as they're blowing. So these are our second earlies and our main crop, all looking very good. So I did say that in this row here I had planted some potatoes that I just bought from the shop to eat, and none of them have come up, so I've actually I'm chitting some more in the house, and we're going to have a late crop of potatoes as well. They'll be ready early winter, November, December time, by the time I get them into the ground after the harvest of these ones. So, but you can see here that our first earlies are just about ready for us to harvest now. So some of them have completely gone over, and I'll be looking to harvest those in the next week as we need to eat them. So I won't pull them out. I tend to harvest as we need them. So I will go for the ones that have died off. As you can see, there are a number of plants there that have died completely. Those will be the first ones that come out of the ground for us. But I'll wait and I'll harvest those when we're ready to eat them, because they're so much fresher that way, and they taste amazing. Just to grow them yourself is incredible. So the second earlies we'll leave in until the same sort of thing, until they have started to go over on the top. So we've seen there's a good harvest under there, so the birds are still liking the chippings, and so they come and they're digging for the worms. So there's a good harvest there. We're seeing the potatoes, so they're just growing and gain just underneath the surface, just gaining lots of nutrients and hopefully growing up nice and tall. And as you can see here, this is my onion patch, and these are this is probably going to be the best onion harvest I have done here. We've done onions every year, but these are the strongest, largest onions that we've ever grown. We get our onions locally, onion sets. Just looking back this way, this is the strawberry patch. As you can see, I've got a few weeds coming through, which are not good. I'm having quite a good crop of these, and I'm taking the strawberries as they come through. The plants, there aren't many plants. So we've just come further up the garden here. As you can see, these are my experiment tomato plants that I've planted outside. They really took a battering last week, and so we needed to stake them, and they are now staked, looking a little bit happier. And if I come in a little bit closer, you'll be able to see there I have some flowers, so they're going to fruit, which is really good news. And just the plants themselves are looking nice and healthy, so I'm not worried about them. They aren't as happy, haven't grown quite as fast as the ones in the greenhouse, which I guess is to be expected because the temperature is lower, but they are looking okay. So, and again, it's flowers on this one. which we'll be looking to see some fruit in the next few weeks. So that's really good news. I've got some fencing that I'm going to put up against the back of the shed there, just so that they'll grow against it and be held up, especially with the fruit coming through. So we have down here, we have some leeks which are waiting to be planted. Unfortunately the weather really hasn't been very conducive to planting, and so that will be being done in the next week or so. And then over here we have, this is another parsnip patch. Difficult to see with everything else that's kind of growing here, but if I can get in a little closer, you can see there are a couple of parsnip plants. Julian planted these up the other week after I showed you the patch, and they're coming along nicely. So they're all growing. I don't think we've lost any, which is really good news. Yeah, so they're all coming along nicely. Again, they're nicely protected from the birds with the netting, and we're looking forward to seeing those progress. So I'll just bring you around a little bit further. So as you can see, that there's quite a lot of garden here, but I wanted to kind of show you in through the window of the greenhouse, so which aren't very clean, unfortunately. So you can see in here, these are my tomato plants that I've planted in the house, in the greenhouse. They need a little bit of tender care. So these have all got flowers on. They're all more advanced than the ones outside, and they're all kind of getting ready to fruit. So let me show you there. There we go. But they need staking. I need to get some stakes for those. It's a matter of urgency, really, looking at them, as they're getting top heavy, so to speak. So, but they're very happy, and they'll grow up against the kind of trellis that you can see there. And then, as you can see, I also have in here my pepper plants, which are growing away nicely. They're all looking very healthy. So there are two different varieties. One of them is a hotter chili pepper, and the other is more of a bell pepper and sweeter to the taste. So we're looking forward to seeing some flowers and fruit on those as they progress. And we keep the windows open in here, and we have a robin that comes and helps himself to the worms in the garden too. So just let me take you around and show you the flower garden. So it's a very mature garden, the flower garden, as you can see, fuchsia and various other shrubs and plants. So this is a little bit of an oasis. It really is quite pretty and well protected here. So we've tried to, this is the smallest part of the garden really, which we've taken. We really don't have to do very much to. I mean, I even have raspberries growing here, which every year I cut them down and pull them out, but every year they grow back. So we'll be looking at what to do about that after I've had the fruit off them. So that's the end really of this update. It's safe to say that I'm just having 1 or 2 strawberries a day if I'm lucky. So and moving round to the blueberry bush. As you can see, I wonder if you can tell, we've actually put a cage around the blueberry bush and released it from its little tent. Very pleased with how this is growing, and has some fruit on there which is ripening naturally there. It seems very happy, there's lots of fresh growth, and so yep, hopefully that one will mature nicely and over the years give us lots of fresh fruit. These are our raspberry canes, which are growing up tremendously. Again, they love the fresh rain, and I have some flowers on some of them, so we'll be seeing some fruit in due course. Again, we weren't concerned really about getting much fruit off these, as I'm the only person in the house that eats them. So round to the parsnip patch, and as you can see through the green netting there, we have some parsnips looking very strong and healthy. So they seem to be, again, they're protected mostly from the birds, because the birds will go in and peck around the plant stem, and it's difficult to control them apart from with this kind of netting. My perpetual greens are doing much better. You will notice that we've had to put some slug pellets down as they were being eaten. But again, this isn't so much a crop for us to eat, although we will have some of it. This is very much a crop for caterpillars and that kind of animal to come and munch on, rather than to munch on other things that we would rather they didn't. The flower bed is starting to take good shape. So again, the rain has done amazing things. So around to the beans here, again you'll see that I have some netting up. So as I said, I mentioned before about the nitrogen content, and again I've double planted these beans now, so there's a second plant on almost every stake, which seems to be, they've all taken, which is really good news. And as you can see, my growth is good now. They're starting to bush out. These are looking happy. And in the middle, you can see I have some more garlic, which part of the reason for putting garlic in here is actually to keep the mice away, and part of it is just to use the land that would otherwise go to waste, because it's difficult to get in there once the beans have fully grown up. So we're I'm very pleased with how these are looking. Still a little bit wind battered. Again, as you can, I wonder if you can see because of the way the wind has blown, but particularly on this plant, for example, this is a fresh plant that I put in last weekend, and I've pulled back the wood chippings and the cardboard and really gone to town putting on lots of extra compost to help give them the nutrients that they need in order to grow up. Obviously once they reach down with their roots they'll find it, but when they're planted so close to the top, it's difficult, and we were just noticing that they weren't looking very happy or growing very well. But certainly some of them now have reached the top of the pole, and they're winding their way around, which is really good. And also, I don't know if you can see that, we've got some flowers, so which is always good news. So I shall be anticipating some fruit from there very soon. We'll be looking to harvest some of those beans in the next few weeks, I imagine, especially if this rain keeps up. So it seems to me that one of the things that we were really missing, especially at the beginning, was this fresh rain, which the plants prefer, definitely prefer to being watered. Even though we collect the rainwater in several butts around the garden, they prefer the rainwater from the sky. It's obviously designed to fall and to create a certain, I don't know, there's something that they gain from that much more than the way we can water them. As you can see, these beans were also looking very sad. So I think I showed you before, looking at the bottom leaves there, how pale they are, but new growth is now coming through, dark green, and how we were expecting them to look. And I wonder if I can show you. We have some fruit, and some of that fruit is looking almost ready to harvest. So let me just see if I can show you here. So these beans here, for example, are looking really good. So we'll be looking to probably pop down later on and harvest some of these to have with our dinner tonight. So it's nothing like having fresh young beans. So back here we have rows of carrots and leek, which are growing nicely, and then in the second cage there we also have rows of carrots and leeks. They're much younger, that's our second crop, so to speak, so it's difficult to see, but there is growth there, and we will be expecting to harvest those. They'll be our second season crop. And then at the front here you have our carrots and our peas, and as you can see, we've had to afford them some protection. Yesterday was extremely windy and rainy, and you can probably see here that the beans have bent in the wind. They are still alive under there, and there is a lot of fruit on there too, which again I shall pop down later on and harvest. It's difficult for you to see. Let me see if I can pull that out. Let's see. worry, I should say, is how that is bending backwards and forwards. So Julian built that and it was very sturdy. Obviously it is still sturdy, it's still standing, so but it concerns us every time. But we'll keep a close eye on that later on, pop down and make sure that it's still okay. And you can see at the tops where the beans are, where the peas aren't protected, how they're getting a little bit windswept. And yeah, we just have to trust that things will calm down again and they'll be happy. These are the tallest we've ever managed to grow peas, so we may have to add some more poles as they continue throughout the summer, because yeah, it's difficult to watch everything being battered so much. So we've just come further up the garden here. As you can see, these are my experiment tomato plants that I've planted outside. They really took a battering last week, and so we needed to stake them, and they are now staked, looking a little bit happier. And if I come in a little bit closer, you'll be able to see there I have some flowers, so they're going to fruit, which is really good news. And just the plants themselves are looking nice and healthy, so I'm not worried about them. They aren't as happy, haven't grown quite as fast as the ones in the greenhouse, which I guess is to be expected because the temperature's lower, but they are looking they're looking okay. So, and again, it's flowers on this one, which we'll be looking to see some fruit in the next few weeks, so that's really good news. I've got some fencing that I'm going to put up against the back of the shed there, just so that they'll grow against it and be held up, especially with the fruit coming through. So we have down here, we have some leeks which are waiting to be planted. Unfortunately the weather really hasn't been very conducive to planting, and so that will be being done in the next week or so. And then over here we have, this is another parsnip patch. Difficult to see with everything else that's kind of growing here, but if I can get in a little closer, you can see there are a couple of parsnip plants. Julian planted these up the other week after I showed you the patch, and they're coming along nicely, so they're all growing. I don't think we've lost any, which is really good news. Yeah, so they're all coming along nicely. Again, they're nicely protected from the birds with the netting, and we're looking forward to seeing those progress. So I'll just bring you around a little bit further. So as you can see, that there's quite a lot of garden here, but I wanted to kind of show you in through the window of the greenhouse, so which aren't very clean, unfortunately. So you can see in here, these are my tomato plants that I've planted in the house, in the greenhouse. They need a little bit of tender care. So these have all got flowers on. They're all more advanced than the ones outside, and they're all kind of getting ready to fruit. So let me show you there. There we go. But they need staking. I need to get some stakes for those. It's a matter of urgency, really, looking at them, as they're getting top heavy, so to speak. So, but they're very happy, and they'll grow up against the kind of trellis that you can see there. And then, as you can see, I also have in here my pepper plants, which are growing away nicely. They're all looking very healthy. So there are two different varieties. One of them is a hotter chili pepper, and the other is more of a bell pepper and sweeter to the taste. So we're looking forward to seeing some flowers and fruit on those as they progress. We'd just like to thank you for watching and having a look around the garden with us. And if you have any comments, please post them in the link below. We'll look forward to reading them and answering any questions. So as I say, I mean, we've made some compost tea, which we'll be using in the next few weeks if the weather dries up again. And we're looking forward to showing you some of the harvest and updating you in a few weeks' time. Thanks for watching.